There are pains that time does not erase. There are scars that no matter how much we try to hide, they bleed whenever they are touched. I lived this pain for more than 40 years. During that time, I woke up every morning wondering where he was. If he was alive. If he would ever come home. Deep down, I could never have imagined that the answer to this anguish was always closer than I imagined. My name is Dona Lords and today I am 78 years old. But my story begins a long time ago, in 1973, when I was still a young woman, just 26 years old. I lived in a small town in the interior of Minas Gerais. It was a different time, when women married young and had many children. My destiny was no different. At the age of 17, I married Amaro, a serious and hard-working man, with whom I had 3 children. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching this story of my life. Take advantage and subscribe to the channel and like the video to help this channel. The oldest Joao was my pride and joy since he was little. He was always a smart boy, one of those who learn things with impressive speed. He was 9 years old. Years ago on the day he disappeared, I still remember every detail of that day as if it were yesterday. At that time, life in the countryside was simple. We lived in a modest house with a large yard where we raised chickens and a wood-burning stove in the kitchen. Amaro worked in the fields planting beans while I took care of him and the children. Joao was my right-hand man. The boy had endless energy. He loved running through the fields, climbing trees, and inventing games. But above all, he loved helping his father on the farm. Since he was little, he said he wanted to grow up to be a strong man like his father. Tjanorm disappeared. I woke up early. I made coffee and prepared lunch. Joao ran out to play with his friends after having breakfast, saying he would be back before noon. It was a common routine. There was no reason to worry. The sun was strong and the dirt roads raised dust when the wind blew. The city was small and all the mothers let their children play in the street without fear. There was no such thing as keeping an eye on them all the time. The children were free. When the clock struck noon, I started to find it strange. Joao was never late for lunch. Even more so knowing that the father didn't like to wait. Time passed and the food was getting cold. I went out to ask the neighbors if anyone had seen the boy, but no one knew anything. He was playing with the kids near the river. Dona Francisca, a neighbor who always sat on the porch watching everything, said. My heart froze. The river wasn't really that bad, but it was treacherous. When it rained heavily, the current swept away everything in its path. I ran out calling his name with a heavy heart. When I got close to the river, I saw some children playing barefoot in the mud. Joao! I screamed in despair. The boys stopped and looked at me, scared. He'd already left. Dona Lords went home a long time ago. That didn't make sense. If he'd left, why wasn't he home yet? My chest started to hurt with desperation. I ran to the house, calling for him, turning corners, opening doors and cabinets as if he were playing hide and seek, but he wasn't. I called Maro, who came in a hurry, and together we started searching the surroundings. We asked all the neighbors, friends, and relatives. Joao had simply disappeared in the middle of the day as if the hours had never existed. They turned into a never-ending nightmare. The sun set and our son was still missing. The anguish was unbearable. Amaro tried to stay calm, but I could see the fear on his face. When night fell, we did something we never imagined we would need to do. We went to the city police station. At that time the police didn't have the resources they have today. There were no security cameras, there were no social networks to spread the news. The police chief looked at us with disdain. The child really disappeared. He must have gone to sleep at a friend's house, he said, as if it were a minor problem. But Joao wasn't like that. He would never sleep out without letting us know. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room staring at the door, waiting for him to come running back at any moment and say it was all just a mistake. But time went by and the worst started to set in inside me. What if he never came back? The next day I woke up with even greater anguish. The whole city was already talking about the Disappearance. Some people said he could have gotten lost, others whispered things I didn't even want to hear. The worst was that there were no clues, no footprints, no clothes, no trace of where he was. I could have gone like a child, disappearing out of nowhere. In the following days, we organized groups to search the woods, rivers, and roads. My husband didn't say a word. He just left every morning and came back every night. His eyes were deep and tired, but something about him bothered me. He seemed more withdrawn than usual. And that was how the worst phase of my life began. Joao never came home. The searches continued for weeks, months, years, but he was never found. Even though the pain was unbearable, what I didn't know yet was that the worst was yet to come. Time has a cruel way of teaching us to live with pain. At first, it swallows us whole. It suffocates us. It makes us believe that we'll never be able to breathe again without feeling our chest tighten. But as the days, weeks, months go by, it settles into some dark corner inside us. It doesn't disappear. It just learns to hide. In the first few days after Joao disappeared, my mind refused to accept that he could be far away. Something inside me screamed that he was still around. That he could be hiding somewhere, waiting for me to find him. The searches began with our neighbors, who they offered to help. They were simple men, farm workers, accustomed to facing cold nights and punishing sunny days. They had lamps and sickles to clear a path through the woods. They looked with that determination of those who would not accept losing one of their own. We walked the trails that led out of the city. Every hole in the road. Every dense forest. We called his name until we lost our voices. We looked under bridges, among the rocks in the river, behind old abandoned warehouses, but there was no sign of him anywhere. Every corner we searched without success. My despair grew. What could have happened? Children don't disappear like that without leaving a trace. He must have run away, but by him, he must have been taken. But by whom? The days turned into weeks. And then the rumors began. In a small town, gossip travels faster than the wind. At first, everyone seemed worried, trying to help us. But soon the whispers began. I heard that he ran away because he was beaten at home. And if it was some kind of crime, there are so many strange people out there. And if he fell into the river and his body was swept away by the current, every word was a blow. I wanted to scream. I wanted people to stop making up stories. But I myself no longer knew what to believe. The police were pressured by some residents to intensify the search. But in the 1970s, without resources, without accurate records, without an efficient system, what could they do? They just filed a report and told us to wait. But how can a mother wait? My body refused to accept the lack of answers. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I no longer had the strength to keep the house in order. I spent my days sitting on the porch, looking at the road, waiting for him to return at any moment. My husband Amaro reacted differently. While I was consumed with pain, he became a man of stone. He left every morning and came back every night without saying a word about the search. At first, I thought he was trying hard for me. He bothered me. I had done something wrong. Ilun. By Joao. No, he was like I am. He wasn't. One day, he was a landslide. He dug something up and moved it in some dirty place. Fear took hold of me. My heart was pounding inside my chest. Where have you been every night, Amaro? It took him a while to answer. He looked me in the eyes for a few long seconds. Too much to look for our son, he said dryly without emotion. But why did I feel like it was a lifetime? Kept passing. The month turned into 2, 3, then half a year. The searches slowed down. The neighbors went back to their routines. The police forgot. The chief stopped answering our calls. Only me and Amaro were left with their silences, their dirty shirts, and their eyes that showed nothing. But the worst was yet to come. I just didn't know it yet. The first few months were like living inside a Nightmare from which I could never wake up. Every day I opened my eyes expecting to hear Joao's small footsteps running through the yard, the sound of his laughter echoing through the house, but the silence was a cruel reminder that he was no longer there. At first the whole town seemed worried. The neighbors came to my house to offer me food. The men still talked about new searches, but with time the case was forgotten. People went back to living their lives because that's what time did. It made us forget to move on, but I couldn't. Every morning that dawned without my son, it was like a knife going through my chest. I stopped at the door of the house looking at the dirt road that led to the city, hoping to see him coming back. Maybe he had just gotten lost, maybe someone had found him and was bringing him back, but no one came. The days turned into months. The initial despair began to turn into an endless emptiness. It was as if my soul had been ripped out, leaving only a hole inside me. I did things out of obligation. I cooked without hunger. I cleaned the house without purpose. I went to mass without faith. Joao's face began to disappear from my dreams. At first, I dreamed about him every night, but over time, even in my dreams, he disappeared, and with him, I began to lose pieces of myself. Amaro changed. Not that he was a very talkative or affectionate man before, but after Joao disappeared, he became different. He didn't want to talk about his son. Whenever I tried, he would cut the subject short. "We need to move on, Lourdes," he would say, but like a mother, she moves on without her own son. At first, I thought it was his way of dealing with pain. Everyone suffers in their own way, right? Maybe he was closing himself off so as not to show weakness. But as the months went by, I realized that it wasn't just pain. He avoided going out with me. He stopped going to the search meetings, and when the neighbors asked if there was any news, he would just shake his head and change the subject. It was as if Joao had never existed, and that was killing me inside. I started to become obsessed. If the police didn't help, I would look for him myself. I would go around the city asking every resident, every merchant, every traveler that passed by, "You saw a 9-year-old boy with brown eyes, straight hair?" Most just shook their heads, but others looked at me with pity, and I started to feel like people didn't want to hear my story anymore. For them, I was just the mother who couldn't accept reality. The loneliness consumed me, the lack of answers drove me crazy, and worst of all, the guilt started to grow inside me. What if Joao had called me and I didn't hear? What if he had gotten lost and I didn't run fast enough to find him? And if I had kept an eye on him that day? A part of me thought I should have done something different, that it was my fault. I didn't want to go out and see anyone anymore. I just wanted to stay inside the house surrounded by the memories of my son. But Amaro couldn't stand it. "You need to stop, Lourdes. It's been a while, a year without my son. You speak as if it were easy to forget," I screamed. He didn't answer. He just looked at me with that look that I could no longer decipher, and for a moment I felt a shiver. It was as if he knew something that I didn't. One day while I was cleaning the house, I found something strange inside Amaro's closet, a bag. I opened it without knowing what to expect. Inside were the clothes that Joao was wearing the day he disappeared. My hands started to shake. What was that doing there? Why did Amaro keep our son's clothes hidden? The light blue shirt, the worn out shorts, the leather sandals, everything there and dirty with dirt. I froze. My fingers ran over the fabric and a shiver ran down my spine. The earth. Why was it there? Why didn't he tell me? The house was silent when I heard his footsteps coming. I quickly hid the bag and tried to act normally, but something inside me told me the truth about Joao was closer than I imagined. I just needed to have the courage to find it. The bag was hidden under my mattress. For days I couldn't look at it without feeling my heart race, without feeling despair consuming me. That bag was the proof that something was wrong, but at the same time I didn't have the courage to confront Amaro. I wanted to believe that he wasn't to blame. My wife's heart refused to accept that the man I married and shared my life with could be hiding something so cruel. But why did he hide our son's clothes and that land? What did it mean? After I discovered the clothes, I couldn't sleep anymore. I would lie next to Amaro, feeling the weight of his breathing, listening to the little noises of the house at night, and my mind wouldn't stop. I wanted to ask, I wanted to get the truth out of him, but what if I wasn't prepared to hear? In the following days I started to observe everything he did, his schedules, his walks, and it was then that I started to notice strange things. He left every night, always at the same time, never told where he was going. When his boots were dirty with dirt and he wouldn't look me in the eyes anymore, something was wrong. I needed TRCMAS to get the courage. One night while he was having dinner, I asked the question that eats away at me inside, "Where have you been every night, Amaro?" He stopped with the spoon in the air. I saw his body stiffened. A He took a deep breath before answering. "Work," he said without looking at me. "Work where?" I insisted, without blinking. "In the field at night." The silence between us was deafening. He stared hard at the table and looked at me for the first time in a long time. "Lords. Why can't you just accept that Joao is gone? It's over." My eyes filled with tears. "It's over for you. Why isn't it over for me?" He sighed, running his hand over his face as if he were exhausted from that conversation. "You need to move on, woman." "But how can you move on when your own husband hides our son's clothes under the bed?" That night I waited for him to fall asleep and went to the closet. I took the bag with the clothes and looked at the earth again. The smell of the earth was still there. I knew at that moment that I needed to do something. I needed to find out the truth with my own eyes. The next night, when Amaro left, I waited for 5 minutes and went after him. He made my heart beat so hard that I thought he could hear me. The city was dark, lit only by the moon. The cold wind cut my face and the only thing I could hear were my own footsteps on the dirt road. I followed him for almost half an hour. And then I saw where he was going. Amaro wasn't going to the field. He was going to the forest. My body felt numb. Why was he going to the forest? What was he doing there? I waited for him to disappear into the woods before I gathered the courage to follow the same path. The trail was narrow, full of dry leaves that crackled under my feet. Every noise made me hold my breath. If he saw me there, I didn't know what could happen. After a few minutes of walking, I saw lights in the middle of the trees. Then the shock. There was a hole dug in the ground. The earth was turned over. The sides were fresh, as if someone had moved it a short time ago. And next to the hole, I saw something that made my legs weaken. A shovel. The same shovel my husband used in the fields. I couldn't move. What was he doing there? Why was there a hole? What was buried there? My breathing went out of control. I tried to take a step back, but I stepped on a dry branch. The noise echoed in the forest. Amaro turned his face at the same time. Then our eyes met for a second. The world stopped. I saw the surprise on his face, the fear, the anger, and then he dropped the shovel and came towards me. "Lords, what are you doing here?" My mouth was dry, I could barely breathe, but at that moment I knew that my husband was hiding something about Joao and I would not leave there without finding out the truth. My body trembled as Amaro approached. His gaze carried something I had never seen before, a mixture of anger and despair. The forest was dark, the wind made the leaves whisper around us. And the only light was from the moon filtering through the branches. The hole dug in front of us, it looked like a portal to the worst of nightmares. "What are you doing here, lords?" Amaro repeated, his deep and threatening voice. I tried to swallow hard, but my throat was blocked. "What are you doing here, Amaro?" My voice came out weak but full of anguish. "What is this hole?" He hesitated for a brief moment. He seemed lost, but then he took a deep breath and his expression hardened. "It is nothing," he answered, coldly looking away. But that was everything. At that moment I was sure that that hole hid the truth about Joao, the idea that my son could be there under that earth. The twist made me lose my strength, my vision, my body went cold, but before I could faint, Amaro grabbed my arm. "Let's go home, you shouldn't be here." Your hand was squeezing my skin tightly. He wanted to drag me away from there, but I refused to move. "Tell me now, Amaro, what did you do?" He clenched his jaw, his eyes went dark. "Nothing. Let's go." My mind screamed at me to run, to get away from him, but at the same time, something inside me said that I couldn't stop. Now I let go of his hand and took a step back. "I'm not leaving here without knowing the truth." He clenched his fists. "Lords." I stared at him, holding back tears. "You owe me this truth. Amaro, for our son." The silence between us was suffocating. And then, for the first time in months, I saw fear in his eyes. He knew, and at that moment, I understood that the truth was much closer than I imagined. That night, we went home without saying a word, but I didn't sleep. I spent hours sitting on the bed, hugging my knees, trying to understand what I had just seen. Amaro was hiding something. The earth was turned over. The way he reacted when he saw me there, but if Joao had been there, Amaro wouldn't have let me leave alive. This idea tormented me all night long. What was my husband hiding? I needed answers, but they came from a place I never expected. The next morning, while I was washing the dishes, my mind still clouded with thoughts. Someone knocked on the door. I opened it slowly and found a postman holding an envelope that had turned yellow with age. A letter to Dona Lourdes. My fingers trembled as I held the paper. Whoever sent it? He shrugged. It arrived without a return address. My heart raced. I took the letter inside. I sat down at the table and opened it with trembling hands. Inside the envelope there was a single sheet of paper, carefully folded. The smell of the paper was old, as if it had been kept for years. Then my eyes began to run over the words written on it. In a hurry, Lourdes, I know you never stopped looking for your son. I know the questions kill you inside. I can't say much, but I need you to know Joao was never far away. He was always closer than you imagine. Ask the man who sleeps next to you every night. The truth is with him. My blood ran cold. My whole body was paralyzed. What did it mean? The letter didn't say who wrote it. It didn't give any more details, but those words told me everything I needed to know. The truth was inside my house and I would stop until I found out. The letter was shaking in my hands. The words danced before my eyes, but I already understood what they meant. Joao was never far away. The truth was inside my house. My legs lost their strength and I had to sit down before I fell to the ground. For years I looked for answers outside, in the streets, in the city, in the fields, in the police stations, but now the truth told me it was always close. Amaro. The letter didn't say it in so many words, but I knew deep down. I always knew. But what exactly did it mean? What did Amaro know about Joao's disappearance? The pain in my chest was suffocating my mind. I spun between memories, his silence, the apologies, the dirty clothes hidden, the hole in the forest. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I couldn't freak out, not now. I needed to act, and for the first time in years I made a decision. I was going to leave that house. I was going to look for the answers wherever they were, and if Amaro wouldn't tell me the truth, I would find it myself. I spent the whole afternoon sitting on the kitchen chair holding the letter, looking at the door as if at any moment Joao could come in, but he didn't, and Amaro as always arrived late that day. When he walked through the door I didn't look at him like before. This time I saw a stranger. I saw a man who was hiding something from me, and I knew I couldn't live there anymore surrounded by unanswered questions. I went to the bedroom and started packing a small suitcase. I didn't take much, just some clothes, money hidden inside the mattress, and the letter folded carefully inside the pocket of my skirt. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but deep down I felt that the answer was waiting for me somewhere, and I wasn't going to go home without it. I needed to think. I needed a plan, and then I remembered something. There was a man in the neighboring city known for helping celebrities find missing relatives. His name was Geraldo, an ex-policeman who worked as an investigator on his own. I didn't have many options. If anyone could help me, it was him. The next day, before sunrise, I left home. I didn't leave a note. I didn't explain where I was going. I simply went. I caught a bus to the neighboring city, holding my bag in my lap. I felt my heart beating so hard that it felt like it was going to explode. Every kilometer the bus went, it was as if I was leaving a nightmare and entering another. I was afraid that at the end of the search I would find something that I wasn't ready to know. But it was too late to turn back. I arrived in the neighboring city in the morning. The streets were busier than those in my city, but I didn't have time to observe anything. I went straight to Geraldo's address. He lived in a simple house with a small office in the back. When I knocked on the door, it took him a few minutes to open it. He was an old man with an unshaven beard and a tired look. I didn't swallow hard. My hands were sweaty. They told me that you help people find missing people. He looked me up and down. Low, studying my face, and then opened the door between the office. It was small, with a wooden table full of papers and a strong smell of tobacco. He pointed to a chair and I sat down. "Who are you looking for?" I took the letter out of my pocket and put it on the table. "My son." He took the paper and read it carefully. When he finished, he looked at me in a different way. "Where did this letter come from?" "They left it at my house. I don't know who sent it." He sighed and scratched his beard. "This is not common. If someone dared to warn you, it's because there is something big behind this." My heart froze. "What does it mean?" He opened a drawer and took out an old notebook, flipping through the pages until he found something, then turned the notebook to me. My eyes landed on a name: João Ferreira da Costa. I almost fell out of the chair. That is my son's name." Geraldo nodded slowly. "Years ago a boy with that name was registered as missing, but some people reported that he could be alive and living with another family." My breath caught. "What I do and know where he is, Dona Lourdes, but I know where to start looking." I was shaking so much I could barely think. João was alive. My heart wanted to believe, but my mind said that it was impossible. "Where was he last seen?" My voice came out almost in a whisper. Mr. Geraldo took a deep breath. "A boy named João, a similar age, was taken from a small town in the 70s. I felt my head spin. "Taken?" He nodded. "Sold?" My blood ran cold. My son was stolen from me. My body refused to accept that possibility. This doesn't make sense." He closed the notebook. "If you really want to find out the truth, you need to be prepared. Sometimes, finding someone means finding out things you can never forget." I closed my hands tightly. I've waited too long. I was ready for anything. "Tell me, where should I go?" He looked at me for a moment and then said the name of the city. At that moment, I knew I was closer to the truth than ever. The name of the city echoed in my head like an omen. My heart was beating fast. My hands were sweating. For the first time in years, I felt like I was on the right path after so long. I was close to the truth about João. Mr. Geraldo wrote down an address on a yellowed piece of paper and slid it across the table to me. "This is the city where the boy was last seen many years ago. I don't know if he's still there. There is a beginning." I looked at that piece of paper with a lump in my throat. That simple note carried all the hope that I had already lost. "Thank you, Mr. Geraldo," he sighed, crossing his arms on the table. "Mrs. Lourdes, before I go, I need to ask you something." I looked up. "Are you prepared for what you might find?" The question took me by surprise. "How come sometimes those who disappear don't want to be found?" My mouth went dry. The idea of finding João and him not wanting to come back to me, that destroyed me, but it was a risk that I needed to take. "I just want the truth," I answered with a firm voice. He nodded slowly. "So go, but go with a strong heart." And with that he shook my hand, took his pipe and walked away to the balcony, leaving me there alone with my decision. I knew there was no turning back. I grabbed my bag, put away the paper with the address and left there. João was alive and I was going to find him. I took a bus to the city indicated by Mr. Geraldo. The journey took more than 4 hours. But for me it was an eternity. The whole time my mind was spinning around the possibilities, and if he was really alive, and if he had been taken against his will, and if he didn't want to see me. The bus would go through the dirt roads, shaking the dust in the air while my head filled with unanswered questions. I looked out the window, watching the world go by outside, the world that kept spinning while I waited for him. João would be almost 20 years old now, a man, but did he remember me? Did he know that I never stopped looking for him? I closed my eyes and pressed the letter to my chest. I had no choice. I needed to know. When I got off the bus I felt a chill run down my spine. The city was simple, smaller than mine, with a few cobblestone streets and houses with wooden balconies. The smell of freshly brewed coffee came from a nearby bakery, and people walked slowly as if time there was different, but I wasn't there to observe the landscape. I looked at the paper in my hands. The address indicated a small house at the end of the main street. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The truth was just a few meters away from me, and I didn't know if it was ready. The house was simple, with a wooden fence a little worn by time and a small garden in front. I stopped on the other side of the street, not knowing what to do and if I was wrong, but before I could back away the door of the house opened, and then I saw him, a tall thin boy with straight brown hair and light brown eyes. The same look that Joao had when he was a boy. The world seemed to stop, my legs weakened. I wanted to scream his name, run to him, hug him, but I couldn't because the moment our eyes met he didn't recognize me. My heart broke right there. He looked at me for a few seconds frowning, and then he went back into the house and closed the door. My chest burned. No, it couldn't be like this. I forced myself to take a deep breath and crossed the street. My steps were heavy as if the ground was trying to pull me back. I went up the steps of the porch and knocked on the door with a trembling hand. I waited. Seconds dragged by like centuries. Then the door opened again and there he was, Joao, my son. He looked at me closely. This time his eyes studied my face as if trying to pull up a lost memory. I opened my mouth trying to speak, but my voice failed. Then he broke the silence. Madam, you know me? My chest tightened and tears began to run down my face. Joao, he blinked in confusion. My name is Pedro. I felt a lump in my throat. Pedro. No, no, my voice cracked. Your name is Joao, you are my son. The shock in his eyes was instantaneous. He took a step back. The door opened even wider and an older woman appeared behind him. She looked at me with a mixture of surprise and terror. Then his expression darkened. Who are you, madam? She asked, her voice harsh. My breathing was short. I looked at Joao or Pedro, and then at that woman. The woman who raised my son. The air was lacking in my lungs. I am his mother. The silence was like thunder. Joao or Pedro frowned, looking at his wife. Mother. The woman grabbed his arm. Don't listen to this woman, Pedro. Let's go in. My heart raced. Don't wait. But she pulled him inside and slammed the door in my face. And that's how the truth hit me like a punch in the stomach. My son didn't know who I was. And worse, someone made a point of hiding it from him. The door slammed in my face. The dry sound echoed inside me, as if my chest had been split in half. My son was there just a few steps away from me and I couldn't reach him. I stood there breathless without strength. The words were still stuck in my throat and my mind tried to process what had just happened. Joao, Pedro, my son. He didn't recognize me. He didn't know who I was. And that woman made a point of pushing him away from me. My eyes burned with hot tears, but I couldn't give up now. My whole life has been marked by waiting for pain, for silences that no one wanted to fill, but I couldn't bear one more. If someone stole my son from me, then that person told me the truth and I wouldn't leave there without her. I knocked on the door again, louder. Nothing. My heart was racing, my body was shaking. I knocked again. Open that door. I know my son is there. This time I heard footsteps on the other side. The door opened with a snap. The woman was there. Her eyes were cold. There was no guilt or regret, just hostility. Go away. I refused to back down. What did you do to my son? My voice came out firmer than I expected. She took a deep breath, pressing her fingers on the side of the door as if to hold on the anger. He is my son. I felt my stomach turn. You stole him from me. Her gaze narrowed. I saved him. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? She crossed her arms and looked me up and down as if sizing me up. You want to know the truth? I deserve to know the truth. She took a deep breath and looked over her shoulder as if making sure John or Peter wasn't listening, and then she said something that made my whole world fall apart. It was your husband who sold him. The ground disappeared beneath my feet. What? She continued to stare at me without blinking. Your husband, the man you slept with every night, he was the one who gave your son away. I felt my body faint. My breath became short. My heart raced. No, it can't be true, but it was deep down. I knew the moment I heard those words. Amaro's silence, the hidden clothes, the hole in the forest. He knew. He always knew. My son didn't disappear. He was sold and his own father did it. My head was spinning and my legs were weak, but I didn't move. I needed to hear. The woman crossed her arms and took a deep breath. He came to me when I was still a child. My husband and I wanted a child, but we couldn't have one, and a man appeared offering a boy. My voice failed her and she hesitated and then said his name, Amaro. I felt my throat close up. You were lying. She gave a humorless laugh. I wish it was a lie, but it's the truth. My knees wobbled. I couldn't believe it, and at the same time I knew it was true. Amaro's behavior was always suspicious. He never looked for Joao like me. He avoided talking about it. He never cried for our son because he knew where Joao was all the time. He traded his own son for money. My mind screamed, my soul burned, and then I did the only thing I could do. I turned my back and ran. I ran to the bus station. I ran to catch the first bus back. I ran back home. I ran back to face the monster I slept with for so many years. I Got home at dusk, my vision was blurred, my breathing heavy, but nothing in the world would stop me now. I knew the truth and he owed me an explanation. I went into the house with my chest on fire. Amaro was sitting at the table eating calmly as if nothing had happened, as if he wasn't a monster. He looked up and saw me, his face contorted in surprise. He knew I had found out everything, but he still tried to pretend. Where were you? My eyes burned. I threw my bag on the floor. You sold our son. The silence was absolute. He didn't deny it, he didn't pretend to be confused, he just stared at the table for a second. He took a deep breath and looked at me again. I did what was necessary. A scream of pain left my chest. Necessary. My hands were shaking, my head was spinning. The man I shared my life with destroyed our family and didn't even have the slightest bit of remorse. I trusted you. My voice was a whisper. He shrugged. What did you want me to do? We had nothing, lords. You traded our son for money. Amaro, he clenched his jaw. He was going to have a better life, a big house, food, everything I couldn't give. My whole body was shaking. You had no right. Yes you did. He slammed his hand on the table. I was his father. I swallowed my tears, feeling my heart crumble inside my chest. You were never a father. The silence between us was cutting. Amaro looked at me and then he looked away. Maybe for the first time he felt ashamed, but it was too late. I would never forgive him, never, and Joao would never be my son again. The house was silent, the most deafening silence of my life. Amaro was sitting without saying anything else. He just looked at me with that cold and empty expression, as if all of this was just another argument, but it was empty. It was the end. I felt when my body gave in, when my legs got weak, when the weight of that truth fell on me like a building collapsing. For years I cried Joao's absence. I spent nights awake pacing the house waiting for any news, any clue. I grew old with this pain inside my chest, and now after everything the answer was always before me. It was the man who shared my bed, who destroyed my life. I had nothing left to say. I couldn't change the past, but I could decide what to do with my future, and at that moment I knew I'm leaving. Amaro, he slowly raised his eyes. What? I swallowed dryly, wiping the tears from his face. You heard, I can't share this roof with a man like you. Your face turned red. And where are you going, lords? My voice came out firm. For any place away from you. He clenched his fists on the table. You have no one, you have nowhere to go. I let out a humorless laugh. And still, I'd rather be alone than spend another day by your side. Silence fell between us. I saw in his eyes that for the first time he was afraid, because he knew he no longer controlled me. I had spent my life being a submissive woman, waiting, accepting, forgiving, but now I was free. I picked up my bag from the floor and started walking around the room, picking up what still mattered to me. It wasn't long ago time and sadness had taught me not to get attached to objects, but before leaving I made sure to pick up one thing, an old photo, the only one left of Joao when he was still little. I put it in the pocket of my skirt and took a deep breath. Then I turned to love for the last time. May God have mercy on you. And without looking back I left that house. The cold night wind hit my face. As soon as I closed the door behind me my soul ached, but my feet didn't hesitate. I had one last destination before leaving forever. I took the first bus back to the city where Joao lived. The way was silently. I looked out the window and tried to organize my thoughts, but it was impossible. Would he ever know the truth? Could it be that even without remembering me he felt that something inside him was missing? The city was empty when I arrived. There were few lights on the streets and the sound of the wind whistling between the houses, but I knew where to go. I walked to the house where he lived, and there in front of the door, breathing heavily and with a broken heart, I knocked one last time. The woman opened her eyes and hardened as soon as she saw me. I asked the lady to leave. My voice was firm. I didn't come to cause trouble, I just want to give him this. I took the photo of Joao as a child out of my pocket and handed it to her. She looked at the paper without saying anything. So before she could throw me out again, I took a deep breath. I know you raised him. I know you love him, but one day he'll want to know where he came from. And when that day comes, don't hide it from him. She didn't answer. She just took the photo from my hand. I stared at the open door for a few more seconds, waiting for some reaction, some word of comfort, anything, but there was nothing. Then the door closed in my face for the last time. Once I walked aimlessly through the city without knowing where to go, my heart was heavy. But for the first time there was no more doubt. The truth had set me free. Even if it was a cruel, painful truth. I would never have my son back, but at least I knew where he was, and I knew he was alive. For the first time in years, I felt like I could start over. I hugged my own arms and closed my eyes for a moment. Then, without looking back, I went to the bus station. I took a bus to any city where I could start over. I didn't know where fate would take me. But for the first time, I knew I deserved to be happy. The bus shook on the dirt road and the city lights were fading away. I was leaving. There were no tears in my eyes this time, just a vast space inside me that would never be filled. For years I waited, I searched, I suffered, but now the search was over. My son was alive, but he was no longer mine, and Amaro destroyed everything that once existed between us. Now it was just me and a future that I had not planned, but that for the first time I could choose. The bus went on for hours until it stopped in a city that I had never heard of before. I got off with my small suitcase, looking around, smelling the fresh coffee coming from somewhere nearby. There no one knew me, no one knew about the woman who spent decades waiting for a son who never came back. No one knew the pain that I carried in my chest, and for the first time this seemed liberating to me. I walked through the streets slowly, absorbing every detail. The houses were simple but cozy. Some people looked at me curiously, but no one asked anything. It was a peaceful place, and maybe it was exactly what I needed. In the first few days I just walked aimlessly, trying to understand what to do with my life. I was no longer a young woman, but I still had strength, and I needed to find a reason to go on. That's when I saw a small cafe in the center from the city. The smell of freshly baked bread filled my lungs, and on impulse I went behind the counter. A friendly lady with white hair tied in a bun smiled at the customers. When she saw me, she blinked her eyes a few times as if trying to recognize me. "You're not from here, are you?" My voice was weak. "I didn't just arrive." She wiped her hands on her apron and came closer. "Well, everyone needs a start. Sit down because the coffee is on me." I sat down, and that was the first moment of calm I felt in years. The coffee was hot, bitter and strong. The bread was simple but soft, with a taste that reminded me of my childhood, and for a few minutes I allowed myself to just exist. It was there in that small cafe that my new life began. The months went by. I got a job at the Café Pequeno, modest but enough. The routine of waking up early, preparing bread, serving coffee brought me a kind of peace I didn't know. I still thought about Joao sometimes. In the silence of the night I took the photo of him as a boy and ran my fingers over his face. I wondered if he thought about me, if he had ever looked at that photo I left for him, if at some point he felt empty. I didn't know why, but I learned that there are things in life that can't be forced, and after so long I chose to move on. One day as I was sweeping in front of the cafe, a woman loved me. She seemed to have traveled from far away. Dusty clothes, a hesitant look. "You are Lord's." My heart raced. "I've never told anyone my name there." "Yes, it's me." She held something in her hands, an envelope. "They asked me to give this to you." My fingers trembled as I picked up the letter. Before I could ask anything, she turned her back and broke it. My heart was pounding in my chest. I held the envelope tightly and wondered. I tore the corner. Inside there was a handwritten sheet, and at the top just one sentence. I discovered everything. My legs gave way. I sat on the step of the sidewalk holding that sheet as if it were the most precious thing in the world. The words danced before my eyes as "Mother, I know who you are. I know what happened to me. I know the lie I've lived all these years." My breath failed. I kept reading. "I didn't know. They never told me. But when I saw your picture, something inside me woke up. It was as if I had always known. But I never had the words to understand. I don't know what to do now. I don't know if I'm ready to see you, but I needed you to know that I know." Pedro Joao. The letter fell from my lap. My eyes filled with tears. He knew my son. I finally knew the truth, and maybe one day he would come to me. I closed my eyes and held the letter against my chest. I spent my whole life waiting, but now I could wait without pain, because deep down I knew time always finds a way to heal everything, even the wounds that should never have been opened. The days passed after the letter, but for the first time I wasn't stuck waiting. I kept the sheet with Joao or Pedro's name inside an old book that was next to my bed. Every night before going to sleep I read those words. "I know who you are. I know what happened to me. I don't know if I'm ready to see you." Those phrases were marked in my mind, in my heart, but now the choice was not mine. I had already done my part. I had already searched, fought, waited. Now it was his turn, and I accepted it. I accepted it because after all I learned that love doesn't need to be rushed. The coffee was calm that afternoon. I was serving some tables, cleaning the counter, when I felt a strange shiver, that sensation that runs through the body before the mind even understands what is happening. I looked up, and then I heard him there on the other side of the street. "Joao." My heart stopped, my body froze. He was different. He was older, taller, with more defined features, but his eyes were the same. He saw me, and for an instant, time stopped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should run to him, call him by name, hug him. But I didn't need to do anything because he came to me. He stopped at the door of the cafe, Still hesitant. I saw the confusion in his eyes, the emotion, the fear, and maybe deep down the same question that I was asking myself. What do we do now? My hands were shaking. My voice failed. Joao. He swallowed hard. He looked around as if trying to find the right words, and then he said, "Can I come in?" I blinked, trying to hold back the tears, and then I smiled. "Of course, my son." He sat down. I sat in front of him. Neither of us knew where to begin. He fidgeted with his napkin. I held my cup of coffee, and then he broke the silence. It took me a while. My voice was low, but it came. He smiled sideways, a smile that I recognized, a smile that once belonged to a boy who played in the backyard of my house. I was afraid of what I would find. I nodded. "So did I." He took a deep breath. "I don't know what to remember, I don't know what to feel, but something inside me always told me that I didn't belong where I was." My eyes filled with tears. "You always belonged to me." He looked at his hands, and then he looked up at me. "I can know more." My chest warmed. My voice came out almost in a whisper. "You can know everything, my son." And so we started from the beginning, not as strangers, but as mother and son, as it should always have been. In the following days, Joao came back other times. Each day he asked more questions about his childhood, about who he was before he was taken. He wanted to know about me, and little by little we found each other. We didn't erase lost time, we didn't pretend that the pain didn't exist, but we learned that even the saddest stories can have a second chapter, and ours had just begun. If you have what I learned on this whole journey was that truth always finds a way back. He can get lost, he can be taken, he can be hidden, but if it's real, he comes back. And sometimes all we need to do is be patient, to wait for the right time. Joao came back to me, and even though we can never recover lost time, we still have the future. And for the first time in my life, I'm no longer afraid of tomorrow. If this story touched you, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message, because love always comes back, and sometimes it just needs time to find the right path.